Today, we're talking about a silent killer of your Google Ads campaign, and that is perfectionism. I see this a lot when I'm coaching agencies and working directly training agency partners. I also see this on the client side. It manifests differently on the agency side than the client side, but it's something that really holds clients back. In today's video, we're going to talk about 3 reasons why letting go of control is actually going to help performance in Google Ads. And we're really going to tie it back to power moves that you can do. Welcome back to another episode of the Google Ads Strategy Hub. I'm your host, Sarah Stemen. I've been working in Google Ads for 17 years, and I cannot wait to share this with you today. If you are ready to take your Google Ads account to the next level, stay tuned. We grew up in a world of paid search where we could control everything, the keyword, the copy, the targeting, absolutely everything was all about control. The paid search person that did it best was the one that knew the system, that knew how to control, that could add every possible keyword, that worked nimbly in the Google Ads editor, adding millions of keywords. I remember that there was a time when I was running campaigns where literally I would maximize Google Sheets, and I had to get a subscription to Excel because Google Sheets would be stalling. I would have so many keywords. That deep understanding used to be the foundation of why agencies and freelancers would succeed. Today, the machine has fundamentally changed that. We're no longer operating on gut feelings and our intelligence and our desire in absolute control. I mean, I guess it wasn't desire, it was frankly skill, because the machine is bidding better than us as humans. But looking back at that time, I think there was a factor. I think we were doing a lot of paralysis analysis. I think we were over optimizing, and we were making decisions that probably weren't right, even though we all thought they were. For example, I don't know anyone that hasn't run a multivariate test that forgot to pause the test, and then the test changed conclusions later on after it went on for 3 months versus the 1 month. Had we stopped the test at 1 month, we would have come to a different conclusion. That tells us that there's no black or white, this or that, to testing. That is an ongoing process that never really is ending, because consumer behavior and search behavior is shifting throughout the whole entire test that we're running, which is really why a lot of the machine learning today operates differently, because it doesn't stop. An RSA is running infinitely. There was also a part of us that was operating on instinct and experience. And I think that's really smart to a certain extent, but instinct and experience isn't always 100% accurate. It's a guess based on years of doing things. And today, the competition, we're trying to get closer and closer to accurate. But when you're trying to control everything, you are actively starving the system of the data that it needs to learn. Remember this. You're fighting the automation that Google has put out there that seeks to find tangential audiences that you may not have considered. And these tangential audiences are many times what soon to become our best customers. The solution to this is the 80-20 imperfection rule. Focus on getting the campaign 80% right based on your experience, based on the data that you have, based on what you know about the business. Then about 20%, or 80-20 rule, is left for the exploration and that testing and for the machine to go out and learn. To be fair, this will allow you to launch your campaigns faster, not worry about every single blessed detail. It allows you to populate with data, not with what you think is going to work. It allows those site links and the extensions to evolve with time, be based on data and what the user really wants to see. And it allows the broader technology to be able to scope further. Your smart bidding is no longer constrained. Your keywords are a little bit looser in type, scope, and breadth. You can find those new audiences and the weird ways that humans search, because we all know humans are weird. The second cycle is we all come with this bias where we think we can determine intent. And we think we can determine intent from a single keyword, and that's simply not the case. And it not only goes back to how users search in ways that we can't even predict, especially with the integration of AI and chatbots and voice to search. I mean, I find more often than not, it's not just because of these nails, I'm using my voice to search because I'm being trained actively through AI that I can put in longer sentences to get what I want. I also actually secretly believe that Google is trying to train us to put in these longer searches, because Google lets us just admit the results aren't as crystal clear as they used to be in the old days. Now, some people would argue that that's because Google's trying to get more clicks on their ads and make more money, a little shaking the couch cushions, so to speak. But I would say that as humans, our behavior shifts and grows and changes in response to all the little details that are going on within the search environment, be that AI-ification of the search page, be that chatbots and how we're being trained to use those, and be that the search results. But thinking that we can get intent from a single keyword is just flawed thinking. And this assumption in the old days led us to these hyper-segmented, siloed campaigns where we tried to make everything completely, absolutely perfect down to intent and audience and location. Before we dive deeper into the costly prices of thinking that we can decipher intent and siloed campaigns, if this is anything that you're struggling with, or I'm changing your mind in any way, make sure you subscribe, comment, or book a one-on-one call with me. I'm happy to help you and get into more depth than I do in these videos. I think a lot of times when we started breaking these campaigns down, we were essentially almost bidding against ourselves. It was really, really complicated. And I find that that has been a problem that people have really fixated on, even when we put everything in the same ad group, is which keyword we're serve. I mean, it all really comes down to trying to get certain keywords to serve. Now, what we used to do in the old days is we would embed negatives. So I would put an exact match campaign, and then I would embed a broad and a phrase match negatives into that campaign. And then in my phrase, I would put exact and broad. And so I was trying to get phrase to go to phrase, exact to go to exact, and broad to go to broad. But was that really happening behind the scenes is really anyone's guess. And today, what we've done is we put a lot of times a broad, a phrase, and exact in the same category. And again, Google kind of serves what it's going to serve. Now, it has its rules, it has its documentation, it has absolutely everything. But when we seek and spend all this time trying to control, to keyword sculpt, to get this absolutely perfect setup campaign, we're sort of missing the boat here. So I guess what I'm saying is I think this is a false idol, and it gets us chasing these campaigns. Okay, did this keyword serve? Did that keyword serve? When we don't look at the campaign and the account as a whole picture. I think if anything came out of a lot of the Google's lawsuit information, it's that the auction is an incredibly dynamic, nuanced auction. And at the end of the day, the auctioneer and the person that's profiting off of our confusion is the system that we rely on. And so it's not as pure as we would think, and we have to accept that. In some realities, Google is a pay-to-play situation, and it's always going to be pay-to-play. And I hate to say it, but it is really a monopoly. And so as practitioners, in some ways, we're stuck, and we have to work with the system and figure out how to be the smartest possible paid search practitioners while working in a system that is probably a little flawed and a little rigged against us. We have to be honest with that. If we're not, we're just cheating ourselves and our clients. That doesn't mean we want to go in and constantly spin our wheels trying to beat the system. It's work with the system. And it's striking the balance in between accepting things and not accepting things, and not choosing settings based on what we know and how we've been trained and everything we've learned over the years. But again, that's all of a balance. So it's not all automation. It's not all manual. There's an in-between, because if we don't do this, we're all going to be inefficient and completely burned out, and there'll be no paid search practitioners left except for the cheap ones, which will always be there ripping off clients. We've talked about that a lot on this channel. The snake oil in Google Ads is real. So this is my new mantra for you. Consolidate and signal. Consolidate keywords, assets, ads, headlines, description. Consolidate into more robust campaigns. Use Performance Max strategically alongside your core centralized search campaigns. Consider AI Max if you're in lead gen. It's almost like you have a brick and mortar impact here to building your search account, campaign by campaign. Your search campaigns are your bricks, and then the mortar becomes the PMax or the AI Max or the DSA or the demand gen. In YouTube, you're adding in little things. You can add decorative accents depending on the purpose, where you want to take your focal point, what you're trying to change, what your ultimate client goal is. Refocus. Shift your priorities to structure and signals. Think in terms of audience signals, conversion values, and asset groups. That's really, really important. Give the platform one very, very clear path to your ultimate goal. The third cycle, your user isn't expecting perfect ad copy. The machine, Google Ads, is not expecting perfect ad copy, but what it is expecting is relevance, speed, and value, meeting that user expectation. I could definitely speak to the time suck of this perfect ad copy, especially because I have so much experience in the corporate world, which really, really tries to be perfect in every way, shape, and form. I would have to put all my ad copy into spreadsheets with multiple tabs. 20, 30 tabs, and I'd have to submit that, and that would have to go through brand managers and legal and compliance, and everyone would make changes to the documents. And at the end of the day, did that make a true difference? Probably not. In fact, a lot of that didn't even see the light of day. And so while they were agonizing over whether we'd have that little trademark symbol there, or whether we were in a legal situation where we didn't have to use that, or whether we could say a certain proof point. A lot of businesses are moving rapidly ahead of us. You don't have to be perfect. In fact, perfect is the opposite of what you have to be in today's dynamic testing environment. I wish I could scream that to the rooftop for my enterprise clients. But since I work with small businesses now, I could tell you that this is where you have the ability to have a competitive edge, because we know the small businesses can be agile. They have to be. That is their competitive edge. And the thing is, in Google Ads, there really is diminishing returns. We see it all the time in the growth curve. The growth curve is not straight up. It's sort of to the curve and then flat, and you have to change that flat. That is what you're trying to do when it comes to actually scaling Google Ads accounts, or any account for that matter, but especially Google Ads. I've never, ever in my entire life, out of all the accounts I've looked at, seen a growth chart that goes straight up and to the diagonal. There is always a curvature and then a flattening, and that flattening is that impact that we're going to have to make by being agile and letting go a little. So really, what you're needing to fight against here is that stagnation and then control. You're going to have to let go a little bit so you don't stagnate, so you don't pause, so you don't get slowed down in the minutia. If you're completely terrified of launching the wrong thing at the wrong time, then you're never going to end up taking action and making those changes that are really going to catapult you forward. So test that brand new offer. In fact, there is a saying called fail fast. Test it quickly in ad copy so you'll know if it really resonates, and then take that to the business. Try that risky proof point. Try that competitive edge where you really directly say something that your competitor you know isn't doing. Say that right in the ad copy. Be bold. Fear of failure is ironically the biggest thing holding you back. It's a double-edged sword. The solution here is strategically have imperfection. Have a test and learn budget. You hear this all the time with Google Ads practitioners. It ties into the 80-20 rule I gave above, but really designate that budget and allow for that flexibility there. In fact, design something that is meant to be imperfect. You could take your 20% and give 5 to 10 and say, my purpose is to fail. I want to see what happens when I fail, and that it's not that scary. Try all broad match. Try accepting all Google's suggestions. Do things that everyone tells you not to do. There is a paid search practitioner, Greg Finn. He works for Cypress North. He owns a huge agency, and he talks about this all the time in conferences. He feels it is his responsibility to try the things that Google recommends for his clients, because if we don't do it, then we don't actually know. Did you know that I have a client that is on Maximize Clicks, a B2B client, with way too many campaigns, 62, and that is one of my most successful clients. That goes against every single thing that I would ever tell a client to do. But that business case works. It works for them. And they have the margins and they have the success. And my actual contact on the client side is the CMO who deals with the actual customers, so he knows it's working. So there is that data feedback loop. Everything is in place. It's just not in place in the traditional way that we're used to hearing in textbook examples of do this Google Ads content. So when you think about your purposeful failing campaigns, the goal is not ROAS. Take that off the table. Accept the fact that you know it's not going to be great. All this is pure market learning and acquisition, data acquisition specifically. You're collecting data, you're buying information. It is like a live Q&A with your actual customers, but you're seeing digitally where people can become a little bit different. We all know internet trolls, the I can't even say the word, the anonymous nature of the internet. We're leaning into that within our paid campaign. And again, that's 5 to 10% of that 20 that we're being a little bit looser with. So what I want you to take away from this is a Google Ads philosophy. Growth is iterative in Google Ads. It's a bit-by-bit process. It's not all at once. That never happens. It is a data-driven, imperfect process that happens one day at a time, one decision at a time. It is not a perfect one-time campaign launch, because if it was, I would be an absolute true millionaire, and I would be lying on a beach somewhere, not following the video that I said above that Google Ads is not a get-rich-fast or a chill job. It is a hands on the computer screen watching the data, even in the days of automation. So I want to wrap this up today by saying the next time you're paralyzed and you're trying to launch that perfect structured campaign with every possible keyword, with all the negatives, and you're putting in negative after negatives, thinking this has to work because I built it in this prescriptive, perfect, absolutely wonderful way, I want you to stop, and I want you to lean in, and I want you to be okay with trying new things, because customers are unique, people are ever changing, and this isn't a static place. I want you to be okay with automation. And I want you to be okay allowing for a little bit to be imperfect. Remember, your perfect strategy isn't to be an architect, but rather a gardener. You're planting seeds along the way. I mean, isn't that what marketing is? Planting seeds. And some of the seeds will sprout. This way, you're going to launch faster, build better, and you're going to start building campaigns for the future. And we're also not going to be boring, and we're going to know things. And we're going to become the thought leaders. Well, I already am because I'm a paid search influencer, but you know what I mean. I'm going to allow my agency partners to build that for themselves. I hope you liked this video today. Be sure to comment, subscribe, follow me on LinkedIn. I'm all over the internet, and happy optimization.